on, get going for the pyramid. Where are you? Girls! This is ridiculous.
Oh, whatever. Settle it down. Bitch!
Stop! I will explain the gossip. Never miss this video. Please subscribe to the channel. The explosive fight that shook the ALDC and nearly tore it apart. If there's one feud that defined Dance Moms in its most iconic era, it was Abby Lee Miller versus Christi Lukasiak. Their tension wasn't just background noise, it was the show. And when it finally boiled over, it created one of the most unforgettable moments in reality TV history. From sarcastic side-eyes to full-blown screaming matches, the power struggle between the ALDC's sharp-tongued dance coach and Chloe's fiercely protective mom built up over several seasons. But when things finally snapped, it was explosive, emotional, and 100% must-see TV. Let's break down how we got there, and why fans still quote this fight over a decade later. From season 1, Christi was not afraid to call Abby out, a trait that made her a fan favorite and a thorn in Abby's side. Where other moms tiptoed, Christi stormed in, armed with one-liners and unwavering support for Chloe. She was never afraid to say what everyone else was thinking. But Abby? She didn't take criticism lightly, especially when it came from Christi. The root of their feud was always the same, Chloe. While Maddie Ziegler was often cast as Abby's golden girl, Chloe was constantly treated like the second best, no matter how hard she worked or how many times she proved herself. And Christi? She saw everything. Week after week, Christi watched Abby ignore Chloe's achievements, nitpick her technique, and sideline her talent, all while Maddie was showered in praise and solos. It was a recipe for resentment, and it simmered beneath every fake smile and awkward dressing room exchange. By the time season 4 rolled around, the tension was unbearable. The drama reached critical mass in the episode where Chloe's role in the group number was questioned, again, and Christi had finally had enough. The Maddie and Kendall duet.
All right, girls.
If there's one thing Dance Moms taught us,
this is the first time that Maddie and Mackenzie are going to dance together in a duet.
The Maddie and Kendall duet debacle,
dance.
a moment so jam-packed with behind-the-scenes chaos, raw emotion, and shady sideline commentary, it deserves its own reality show spin-off. On paper, pairing Maddie and Kendall should have been a no-brainer. Both were powerhouse performers. Both had the technique. Both had the stage presence. But what seemed like a golden opportunity quickly spiraled into a powder keg of pressure, passive aggression, and straight-up mom-fueled drama. Let's unpack the full mess, because this wasn't just a duet. This was a disaster in slow motion. It all started when Abby decided to give Kendall and Maddie a duet. Now, Maddie Ziegler was Abby's undeniable favorite. She had the solos, the attention, the tears-on-command moments. Kendall, on the other hand, was still clawing her way up the pyramid. So when Abby announced the duet, Jill's face lit up like Times Square. But Melissa? Not so much. She looked worried. Suspiciously worried. Why? Because pairing Kendall with Maddie meant one thing. If they lost, Maddie's perfect record was at risk. And Melissa knew Abby never blamed her golden girl. She blamed whoever was holding her back. Enter Kendall. From the moment rehearsals started, it was clear. This was going to be a train wreck. Abby barely looked at Kendall. Maddie got corrections. Kendall got side-eyes. If Maddie messes up, she gets more rehearsal time. If Kendall messes up, she gets yelled at. Jill, in a confessional, absolutely fuming. It didn't help that the choreography was challenging. Fast-paced, emotionally intense, and incredibly detailed. One tiny misstep, and the duet could crumble, which meant the pressure wasn't just on the girls. It was on the moms, too. Jill was desperate to prove Kendall could rise to Maddie's level. Melissa was silently panicking, worried the duet would expose Maddie's vulnerability. Abby? She just kept raising the stakes. If you two can't deliver, don't expect to compete again next week. Abby, classic threat mode, zero chill. Cue the behind-the-scenes drama. As the competition drew closer, Melissa began spiraling. She confided in Abby privately that she didn't want the duet to happen. Big mistake. Abby took that and ran with it. Suddenly, Melissa's doubts became gospel truth, and Abby started using them as ammo to justify every time she snapped at Kendall in rehearsal. Melissa doesn't even want this duet, Jill. And you're over here acting like it's a gift. Abby, doing what she does best, stirring the pot. Jill exploded. Melissa sabotaged this. She shouted in one of the most iconic dressing room confrontations to date. Monet Ray enters the ALDC, the tiny tornado who turned the Dance Moms world upside down. When Monet Ray made her grand entrance on Dance Moms, jaws dropped, eyes rolled, and Abby Lee Miller practically glowed. This wasn't just any new dancer. This was a firecracker with rhinestones in her hair and attitude in her strut. Straight from Abby's ultimate dance competition, Asia wasn't there to blend in. She was there to steal the spotlight, and she did exactly that. Let's gossip about the pint-sized queen who spun, shimmied, and smirked her way into Dance Mom's history. Abby introduced Asia like she was unveiling a secret weapon. The studio doors opened, and in came this tiny girl with major presence. And it wasn't just the way Asia walked in. It was how everyone else reacted. The moms froze. The girls whispered. And Abby? Abby was grinning like Christmas came early. This is Asia. She's here to show you what performing really looks like. Abby already laying down the challenge. The ALDC girls had no idea they were about to be completely outperformed by someone nearly half their size. You could feel the jealousy brewing before Asia even did her first turn. Asia didn't just ruffle feathers. She pulled out an entire fan. Jill and Melissa looked like they were watching their dance dreams go up in sparkly flames. Christi raised an eyebrow so high it nearly floated off her face. And when Christi Ray, Asia's mom, tried to join the mom circle, cold shoulders all around. Because let's be honest, nothing makes the ALDC moms sweat faster than a new girl who can outperform their daughters on day one. She's 6, but she dances like she's 30. Every mom's nightmare, basically. From the first rehearsal, Asia brought fire. She hit her moves sharp, didn't miss a beat, and had performance faces for days. Abby loved it. She even said Asia gave more face than half the team combined, and that burned. While the other girls were still asking, "Am I doing this right?" Asia was full-on serving sass, style, and stage presence. Mackenzie was clearly not thrilled that Asia had entered her territory as the adorable little one. Suddenly, Kenzie's cartwheels didn't seem so impressive. Asia's first solo wasn't just a dance. It was a statement. The routine? High energy, full of attitude, and basically tailor-made to show off her inner diva. She hit the stage in sunglasses and red sequins like she was headlining a world tour. It was the kind of number that made Abby beam and the other moms twitch. She didn't just dance. She owned it. Abby, throwing subtle shade at her regular team. Asia's solo went viral. Fans couldn't believe someone so tiny had that much confidence. Meanwhile, the ALDC girls were left wondering if their solos were about to be handed to this newbie every week. Spoiler, they were. Christi Ray didn't back down. She may have looked polished and calm, but she had a spine of steel. The moms tried to test her, and Christi calmly read them like a tabloid headline. She wasn't there to gossip. She was there to win, and she knew Asia had the talent to do it. Even Holly, the most level-headed of the bunch, seemed suspicious. When Christi said, "Asia just loves to perform," translation, "She's here to take your kid's spotlight." Let the passive aggression begin. Let's talk about the real mini-rivalry. Asia and Mackenzie were both small, both cute, and both trying to prove they deserved to be Abby's baby star. But while Kenzie was used to tiptoeing around Abby's mood swings, Asia charged in like a pop star in training. Kenzie pouted. Asia posed. The tension? Icy. At one point, Mackenzie even said she didn't like how Asia made faces when she danced. But Asia's faces were exactly what Abby wanted. Energy, expression, and over-the-top oomph. Poor Kenzie couldn't compete with that level of flair, and it showed. The infamous Open Waters group dance. The premise, a dark, moody piece with emotional depth. Abby hyped Open Waters like it was her magnum opus. A lyrical group number, deep with meaning and pain, meant to showcase the team's ability to go beyond technique and deliver raw, haunting emotion. Translation? A recipe for disaster. The girls were meant to portray lost souls at sea. Think ethereal movements, trembling arms, and an overwhelming sense of being emotionally adrift. Abby warned them that it would be a very mature piece, and they had to dig deep. But half the team was still in braces and had no idea what emotional turmoil meant beyond forgetting their homework. And let's not forget, Abby loved a theme. But this time, she was sailing into stormy waters. From the moment rehearsals began, mom drama overshadowed the choreography. Melissa was confident Maddie would be front and center, as usual. Christi, meanwhile, had it up to here with the favoritism. When Chloe wasn't given the spotlight role in the piece, despite her strength in lyrical, the tension reached a boiling point. It's always Maddie. Every emotional dance? Maddie. Every front and center moment? Maddie. Christi not wrong, just loud. And Abby didn't exactly help. She made vague statements about commitment and technique, but everyone could see what was happening. The favoritism wasn't even subtle anymore. It was practically choreographed into the routine. Let's talk about the actual rehearsal, a slow-motion train wreck. Abby barked corrections at every girl except Maddie. Chloe got picked apart for her timing, Paige for her arms, and Nia for her expressions. The pressure was on, and the girls were cracking. To make things worse, the spacing was a mess. Dancers kept crashing into each other during the floor work, and the formations looked like Abby had choreographed them with her eyes closed. At one point, Paige broke down in tears, prompting Kelly to demand Abby back off. Abby's response? Even more pressure. She told the girls they were floundering like fish, and honestly, it was the most accurate thing she said all season. Let's not forget who was still hanging around during this number. Monet Ray, Asia's mom, whose presence always came with a side of tension. Even though Asia wasn't in the number, thankfully, could you imagine her trying to play a drowned sea ghost? Christi had opinions. Loud ones. When she muttered under her breath that Chloe looked dead behind the eyes, Christi nearly launched herself across the room. That was it. The mom war had officially returned to DEFCON 1. Cue the screaming eye rolls and that signature Christi headshake. Abby, of course, sat there sipping her iced coffee like it was her personal soap opera, which, honestly, it kind of was. Let's set the stage. A dimly lit theater, fog rolling in, soft piano music, and 6 girls in gauzy blue dresses trying to emote drowning without actually drowning on stage. The first 30 seconds? Haunting. Beautiful even. Maddie hit her turns. Chloe's lines were gorgeous. For a moment, it looked like the ALDC might pull this one off. Then came the ripple effect. Literally. One girl missed a cue. The ripple was off. A formation got skipped. Maddie looked panicked. Paige bumped into Nia. And in the middle of it all, Abby mouthing, "What are they doing?" from the audience like she hadn't spent the whole week belittling them instead of coaching. The whole thing started to look like a slow-motion interpretive shipwreck. Backstage? Silence. Not the good kind. The icy, tension-filled silence that comes before someone explodes. And explode she did. Abby stormed in, demanding to know who ruined her choreography. She slammed chairs. She blamed Paige for spacing, Nia for being too late, and Chloe for not being strong enough to lead. She did not blame Maddie, even though Maddie was clearly flustered on stage. This was supposed to be art, and you girls made it look like a middle school recital. Abby, furious and dramatic. Cue the waterworks. The girls cried. The moms fought. Abby threatened to scrap lyrical numbers forever. And all over a dance where no one really knew what the point was in the first place.
I can tell you're still testing the water. You don't know how to begin.
Let's talk about one of the most obvious, painful, and downright infuriating moments in Dance Mom's history. When Paige Hyland wasn't just set up to fail, she was paraded out to fail with cameras rolling and Abby grinning. This wasn't just a bad solo. This wasn't just a weak week. This was sabotage in stilettos. Whether you were Team Abby or Team Kelly, if that's even a real question, everyone saw what happened. Paige was thrown into a high-stress, low-prep, totally unrealistic dance challenge, all under the guise of giving her a chance. Please. Abby wasn't giving her a shot. She was giving her a shovel to dig her own grave on stage. Let's unpack the week that proved Paige was never allowed to succeed. It all started with Abby randomly assigning Paige a solo. out of nowhere. No real warm-up, no build-up, just a solo dropped in her lap like a trapdoor opening under her feet. The moms? Shocked. The team? Confused. Kelly? Suspicious immediately. Because the solo wasn't just a solo. It was a high-energy, complex routine that had last-minute disaster written all over it. And Abby? She didn't even try to hide the smirk. Let's see what she does with the opportunity. Abby, already knowing exactly what was going to happen. And to make things worse, the dance had props. Yes, props. For Paige, the girl Abby constantly ignored, constantly overlooked, and barely let practice in peace. Now she was supposed to juggle risky choreography and manage a prop with only a few days to prepare. What could go wrong? Everything. The rehearsal footage was brutal. Paige was doing her best, and you could see how hard she was trying, but Abby offered no support. No real corrections. No guidance. Instead, she rolled her eyes, muttered under her breath, and kept stepping out of the room. Every time Paige stumbled or asked for help, Abby either 1. Blamed her. 2. Ignored her. 3. Yelled at Kelly. And yes, it quickly turned into an Abby versus Kelly showdown, as usual. But this time it wasn't just about mom drama. It was about a kid being blatantly set up to look bad on national TV. You give her a solo with props and no time, then leave the room during rehearsal? Kelly, rightfully losing her mind. Abby's response? She should be able to handle it. Let's not forget, even Maddie didn't get prop solos without full rehearsal weeks and special coaching. By the time competition day rolled around, Kelly was a walking pressure cooker. And how could she not be? Her daughter was clearly overwhelmed, underprepared, and terrified of letting everyone down, especially Abby, who treated failure like a personal betrayal, unless your name was Maddie. Christi, Holly, even Melissa could see what was happening. Paige was being hung out to dry, and Kelly was barely holding it together. And when Kelly tried to give Paige some last-minute tips backstage, Abby stormed in and accused her of sabotaging the team. The hypocrisy was mind-blowing. She's not allowed to coach her kid, but you can scream at Maddie mid-turn? Christi, whispering the truth everyone else was thinking. When Paige walked on stage for her solo, the audience and viewers at home were already holding their breath. And to her credit, she started strong. You could see the determination in her face. She wanted this. But then the prop betrayed her. One wrong step, one awkward grip, and it all started to unravel. The timing slipped. Her confidence cracked. The moves got rushed. She stumbled. The expression in her eyes went from hopeful to horrified in real time. And still, she finished. Let's say that again, she finished. No running off stage. No tears mid-performance. She stuck it out. And that was strength. But Abby? Abby didn't care. Back in the dressing room, Kelly was on fire. She didn't scream at Paige. She hugged her, comforted her, told her she was proud. Because unlike Abby, Kelly saw how hard Paige had tried with what she'd been given. But then Abby came storming in, waving score sheets and throwing around phrases like embarrassment and waste of my time. Cue the explosion. You set her up to fail. Kelly, tears in her eyes and voice full of fury. She failed because she's not good enough. Abby, never missing a chance to twist the knife. The fight that followed was one of the ugliest in Dance Mom's history. Screaming, door slamming, and a mom pushed past her breaking point. All because her daughter had been set up to fail, and did. This wasn't just a Kelly versus Abby issue. The whole team felt the tension. Christi openly called it a trap, and Holly, ever the voice of reason, said Paige was robbed of a fair shot. Even Melissa looked uncomfortable, which is saying something. But no one could do much. Abby ruled that studio like a queen on a crooked throne, and if you spoke out, your kid might be next. So most of the moms just sat in silent agreement, watching the wreckage like passengers on a sinking ship. When the episode aired, fans lost it. Social media exploded with support for Paige and outrage at Abby. Tweets poured in. That was sabotage. No debate. Paige was set up to fail and still handled it like a queen. Abby treats kids like disposable pawns. #JusticeForPaige trended, and YouTube was flooded with reaction videos breakdowns, and supercuts of Abby's most brutal treatment of the Highland girls. Paige had become something bigger than a struggling dancer. She became a symbol of every unfairly treated kid under Abby's rule. Let's be clear, this wasn't just a bad week. It left a scar. After that solo, Paige's confidence took a massive hit. You could see it in her body language, in the way she stopped raising her hand in rehearsal, in the way she looked for approval that never came. And Abby? She never gave her another rail shot. It was as if she'd finally proven what she wanted to prove, that Paige couldn't handle it, and she was done pretending otherwise. But the fans? The fans never forgot. Here's the twist. Abby thought she'd humiliate Paige and win the power struggle with Kelly. But in reality, she exposed herself. She showed the world what the Highland girls had dealt with for years: unfair treatment, emotional manipulation, and a teacher who picked favorites like it was a sport. And Paige? She became a quiet hero. Not because she nailed every step, but because she showed up, did her best, and kept her head high, even when the odds and her own teacher were stacked against her. In the world of dance moms, comebacks aren't just about winning. They're about surviving Abby Lee Miller. And no comeback was more poetic, more symbolic, and more heart-wrenching than Chloe Lacasiak's emotional return to the ALDC spotlight with her iconic solo, Dream on a Star. This wasn't just another lyrical routine. This was Chloe's silent mic drop. Her middle finger in the form of perfect pirouettes. Her moment to remind everyone, especially Abby, that no matter how many times you get pushed down, you rise. Let's dive into the solo that silenced haters and sent fans into full-on goosebumps mode. At this point in the series, Chloe had been battered by favoritism, buried under Abby's mind games, and practically treated like a backup dancer in her own team. After seasons of being compared to Maddie, publicly and painfully, Chloe had finally cracked. Between the silent treatment, unfair critiques, and being constantly overlooked, it seemed like Abby was determined to erase her. But then the solo happened. Dream on a Star wasn't just a dance, it was a reclamation. In a rare plot twist, Abby suddenly gave Chloe a solo, and not just any solo. A lyrical one. Chloe's bread and butter. The genre she could dance in with her eyes closed and still bring the audience to tears. At first, fans were suspicious. Was Abby setting her up again? Was this another fake opportunity like she gave Paige? But no, this time Chloe was ready. And the title? Dream on a Star. That wasn't subtle. That was personal. Because Chloe was the dreamer. The star Abby tried to dim. From the second Chloe started rehearsing the piece, you could feel it. This was different. The emotion was raw, the movements were pure poetry, and for once, Chloe looked like she believed in herself again. Christi was practically in tears watching rehearsal, whispering things like, "This is what she's meant to do." And the other moms? Even they had to admit, this solo had magic written all over it. Meanwhile, Abby pretended not to care. It's fine. She's had better dances. Abby, clearly rattled but too petty to admit it. But behind the scenes, you know she saw it. You know she felt the threat. Because Chloe wasn't just dancing. She was making a statement. The moment Chloe stepped onto that stage in her ethereal costume, soft blues, a gentle sparkle, hair pulled back like a true ballerina, the crowd went quiet. It was like the air shifted. And then the music started. Dream on a Star was delicate and powerful all at once. The turns were fluid. The leaps were soaring. But it was Chloe's face, the emotion, the heart, the storytelling, that took it over the edge. She wasn't performing for Abby. She wasn't even performing for the judges. She was performing for herself. Every movement screamed, "You didn't break me. I'm still here. I am enough." When she walked off stage, the moms were shook. Christi was sobbing. Holly hugged her like a proud aunt. Even Melissa had no choice but to clap. Because no matter how many times Maddie won, this was the moment that would be remembered. But Abby? Silent. Not a compliment. Not a nod. Just a tight-lipped glance as if she hadn't just witnessed one of the most powerful solos in ALDC history. You're only as good as your last dance. Abby, doing Olympic-level mental gymnastics. The scores came in and surprise, surprise, Chloe placed. She didn't just hold her own, she soared. It wasn't about taking first. It was about taking back her power. The judges loved the emotion, the technique, the depth. It was everything Abby claimed Chloe didn't have and more. And while Maddie's duets and showpieces were always Abby choreographed masterpieces, this solo belonged to Chloe. No gimmicks. No favoritism. Just raw, real talent. Let's take a second to appreciate Christi. After seasons of watching her daughter get crushed, diminished, and gaslit, this solo was her victory too. And did she gloat? Okay, maybe a little. But who wouldn't? She kept it mostly classy, just a few side eyes, a subtle smirk, and a couple of I told you so whispers in the mom lounge. Abby ignored her, of course. Because to acknowledge Chloe's greatness would mean admitting she was wrong. And if there's one thing Abby Lee Miller doesn't do, it's admit defeat. The second Dream on a Star aired. Fans exploded. Social media lit up with edits, GIFs, memes, and tributes. Hashtag Chloe's comeback. Hashtag Dream on a Star. Hashtag Justice for Chloe. All trended. YouTubers made reaction videos. Dance professionals praised the routine. Fans tweeted that they cried. And honestly, same. Because Chloe wasn't just dancing. She was healing in real time, and the whole world saw it. Though she never admitted it publicly, you could tell Abby knew Chloe had delivered something special. Her critiques were vague. Her feedback, passive-aggressive. But the other girls saw it. And the moms? They talked. She can't stand that Chloe did this without her approval. Holly, sipping tea with a side of truth. It was the beginning of a shift. Chloe wasn't just the other girl anymore. She was a force. And Abby? She knew it. Today, fans still talk about this solo as one of the most defining moments in Dance Mom's history. It wasn't the flashiest. It didn't have crazy tricks or acrobatics. But it had soul. It had story. It had Chloe. Dream on a Star became a symbol of resistance, growth, and everything Chloe stood for. A quiet strength. A resilience. A grace under pressure. And dancing like your heart's been broken, but you still believe in magic. While others may have chased trophies and star billing, Chloe earned something else. Respect. Not just from fans, but from dancers, moms, and even Abby's own students. She proved that talent doesn't need constant praise. That you can be overlooked and still shine. That dreams don't die just because someone says you're second best. She proved that underdogs? They bite back. And sometimes they dance circles around their critics. In the world of Dance Moms, comebacks aren't just about winning. They're about surviving Abby Lee Miller. And no comeback was more poetic, more symbolic, and more heart-wrenching than Chloe Lacasiak's emotional return to the ALDC spotlight with her iconic solo, Dream on a Star. This wasn't just another lyrical routine. This was Chloe's silent mic drop. Her middle finger in the form of perfect pirouettes. Her moment to remind everyone, especially Abby, that no matter how many times you get pushed down, you rise. Let's dive into the solo that silenced haters and sent fans into full-on goosebumps mode. At this point in the series, Chloe had been battered by favoritism, buried under Abby's mind games, and practically treated like a backup dancer in her own team. After seasons of being compared to Maddie, publicly and painfully, Chloe had finally cracked. Between the silent treatment, unfair critiques, and being constantly overlooked, it seemed like Abby was determined to erase her. But then the solo happened. Dream on a Star wasn't just a dance. It was a reclamation. In a rare plot twist, Abby suddenly gave Chloe a solo, and not just any solo. A lyrical one. Chloe's bread and butter. The genre she could dance in with her eyes closed and still bring the audience to tears. At first, fans were suspicious. Was Abby setting her up again? Was this another fake opportunity like she gave Paige? But no, this time Chloe was ready. And the title? Dream on a Star. That wasn't subtle. That was personal. Because Chloe was the dreamer. The star Abby tried to dim. From the second Chloe started rehearsing the piece, you could feel it. This was different. The emotion was raw. The movements were pure poetry. And for once, Chloe looked like she believed in herself again. Christi was practically in tears watching rehearsal, whispering things like, "This is what she's meant to do." And the other moms? Even they had to admit, this solo had magic written all over it. Meanwhile, Abby pretended not to care. It's fine. She's had better dances. Abby, clearly rattled but too petty to admit it. But behind the scenes, she saw it. She felt the threat. Because Chloe wasn't just dancing. She was making a statement. The moment Chloe stepped onto that stage in her ethereal costume, soft blues, a gentle sparkle, hair pulled back like a true ballerina, the crowd went quiet. It was like the air shifted. And then the music started. Dream on a Star was delicate and powerful all at once. The turns were fluid. The leaps were soaring. But it was Chloe's face, the emotion, the heart, the storytelling, that took it over the edge. She wasn't performing for Abby. She wasn't even performing for the judges. She was performing for herself. Every movement screamed, "You didn't break me. I'm still here. I am enough." When she walked off stage, the moms were shook. Christi was sobbing. Holly hugged her like a proud aunt. Even Melissa had no choice but to clap. Because no matter how many times Maddie won, this was the moment that would be remembered. But Abby? Silent. Not a compliment. Not a nod. Just a tight-lipped glance as if she hadn't just witnessed one of the most powerful solos in ALDC history. You're only as good as your last dance. Abby, doing Olympic-level mental gymnastics. The scores came in and surprise, Chloe placed. She didn't just hold her own, she soared. It wasn't about taking first. It was about taking back her power. The judges loved the emotion, the technique, the depth. It was everything Abby claimed Chloe didn't have and more. And while Maddie's duets and showpieces were always Abby choreographed masterpieces, this solo belonged to Chloe. No gimmicks. No favoritism. Just raw, real talent. Let's take a second to appreciate Christi. After seasons of watching her daughter get crushed, diminished, and gaslit, this solo was her victory too. And did she gloat? Okay, maybe a little. But who wouldn't? She kept it mostly classy, just a few side eyes, a subtle smirk, and a couple of "I told you so" whispers in the mom lounge. Abby ignored her, of course. Because to acknowledge Chloe's greatness would mean admitting she was wrong. And if there's one thing Abby Lee Miller doesn't do, it's admit defeat. The second Dream on a Star aired. Fans exploded. Social media lit up with edits, GIFs, memes, and tributes. Hashtag Chloe's comeback. Hashtag Dream on a Star. Hashtag Justice for Chloe. All trended. YouTubers made reaction videos. Dance professionals praised the routine. Fans tweeted that they cried. And honestly, same. Because Chloe wasn't just dancing. She was healing in real time, and the whole world saw it. Though she never admitted it publicly, you could tell Abby knew Chloe had delivered something special. Her critiques were vague. Her feedback, passive-aggressive. But the other girls saw it. And the moms? They talked. She can't stand that Chloe did this without her approval. Holly, sipping tea with a side of truth. It was the beginning of a shift. Chloe wasn't just the other girl anymore. She was a force. And Abby? She knew it. Today, fans still talk about this solo as one of the most defining moments in Dance Mom's history. It wasn't the flashiest. It didn't have crazy tricks or acrobatics. But it had soul. It had story. It had Chloe. Dream on a Star became a symbol of resistance, growth, and everything Chloe stood for. A quiet strength. A resilience. A grace under pressure. And dancing like your heart's been broken, but you still believe in magic. While others may have chased trophies and star billing, Chloe earned something else. Respect. Not just from fans, but from dancers, moms, and even Abby's own students. She proved that talent doesn't need constant praise. That you can be overlooked and still shine. That dreams don't die just because someone says you're second best. She proved that underdogs? They bite back. And sometimes they dance circles around their critics. If there's one Dance Mom storyline that hit deep, not just for fans, but for anyone who's ever been underestimated, it's the slow-burning battle between Nia Sue and Abby Lee Miller. For years, Nia endured the eye rolls, the snubs, the ethnic comments, and the backhanded praise. But behind every tear was grit, And behind every smile was a girl who knew one day her moment would come. And when it did, it wasn't loud. It wasn't messy. It was powerful. This is the story of how Nia turned Abby's endless dismissal into her own defining era, and why fans still chant, "Justice for Nia." Let's not sugarcoat it. Abby never saw Nia as a star. From the very first episode, it was clear Nia was the one Abby put in the group fillers section. She rarely got a solo. If she did, it was a last-minute rush job. And don't even get us started on the costuming. While Maddie got custom couture and Chloe got lyrical elegance, Nia got, say it with us, wigs and props. Who could forget the infamous Lakeitha dance, where Abby dressed Nia in a leopard print outfit and wig and reduced her to a stereotype? The entire internet cringed. Christi even called it out on camera. But Abby smiled. Proudly. It's character work. Abby, hiding behind theatricality to justify blatant disrespect. Abby's treatment of Nia wasn't always about what she said. It was about the tone, the dismissiveness, and the constant erasure. When Nia would work hard, Abby would shrug. When Nia won something, it was the costume. When Nia tried something new, "You're not cut out for this." She told Nia she lacked flexibility. She said her face was blank. She literally laughed at her when she tried to sing. And yet, Nia kept going. Week after week, she showed up. No tantrums. No favoritism. Just work. Because Nia wasn't there to be a favorite. She was there to earn her place. Let's talk about Holly, the real MVP of the ALDC mom squad. While some moms screamed and stormed out, Holly kept her poise. She fought not with volume, but with logic, facts, and a PhD-level vocabulary that Abby clearly wasn't ready for. And Abby hated it. Because Holly didn't play the yes ma'am game. She saw the way Abby tried to pit the girls against each other, and she refused to let her daughter be reduced to a stereotype. "You don't get to define my daughter." Holly, straight up preaching truth on Lifetime. And when Abby finally pushed too far, Holly snapped. Not with chaos, but with classy rage. There were many moments where Nia versus Abby simmered under the surface. But one day it boiled over. Abby criticized Nia again in front of the group. Something about her being not good enough or not born to be a star. Typical Abby script. But this time, Holly wasn't having it. She stood up, looked Abby square in the eyes, and called out the years of bias, the exclusion, the disrespect. And what did Abby do? She flipped it, accused Holly of being too sensitive, said Nia should be grateful for the crumbs. It was disgusting. And it was peak Dance Moms drama. Through all the noise, Nia never lashed out. She never cried on cue. She just kept showing up, rehearsing, improving, grinding. And eventually, her work paid off. She started booking small wins, featured moments in group routines, a solo here and there, moments where even Abby had to admit, "That was better than I expected." Translation? Nia was undeniable. She was rising without Abby's help, and maybe because of her coldness. One of the most shocking betrayals? When Abby started lifting up new favorites, like Maddie and Kendall, and acted like Nia didn't even exist. She'd say things like, "I don't have time to waste on her." She openly discouraged her from pursuing music. And when Nia tried to branch out beyond the ALDC, that's when the real drama hit. When Nia teamed up with Aubrey O'Day, yes, that Aubrey, and dropped her single Star in Your Own Life, fans were obsessed. It was catchy, empowering, and most importantly, Nia owned every bit of it. But Abby? She mocked it. She said the video was amateur. She insulted Nia's vocals. She literally told her she was embarrassing herself. It was rage-inducing. But guess what? Nia kept filming, kept singing, kept thriving. She was finally writing her own script. Once fans saw Abby still trying to tear Nia down, even as she pursued her dreams outside of the LDC, they snapped. Twitter flooded with hashtags like, a hashtag Nia deserves better, a hashtag Abby is a bully, a hashtag justice for Nia. Even celebs and influencers weighed in, calling out the racial undertones in how Nia was treated differently, constantly told to be grateful, while other girls were handed opportunities on a silver platter. And finally, the world started to see it clearly. Nia wasn't a background dancer. She was a survivor. What made Nia's journey so unforgettable wasn't just the dance routines, it was how she handled herself. The grace, the resilience, the refusal to stoop to Abby's level. In her final seasons on the show, Nia showed us who she really was. A confident performer, a budding singer, a role model for girls everywhere who've been underestimated. She took the years of being sidelined and used them as fuel. Not revenge, rebirth. And when the group started falling apart, who stayed loyal? Who stayed calm? Nia. Always Nia. Underscore 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 underscore. Holly and Nia, the unbreakable bond. Let's take one last moment for this mother-daughter duo. Holly fought for Nia in every room Abby tried to shut her out of. She taught her daughter to fight with dignity, to believe in her worth, to work for her dreams, even if she had to take the long way. And Nia? She listened. She absorbed. She became exactly the kind of woman Holly raised her to be. The final word didn't come from Abby. It came from Nia, quietly walking away from the drama, with her head held high and her name on her own damn song. Nia's time on Dance Moms wasn't defined by glitter or trophies. It was defined by grit. Every tear she shed became a brick in the foundation of her strength. While Abby built stars, Nia became one, on her own terms. She didn't have the most solos. She didn't have the spotlight. But she had something more powerful. Self-respect. And in a show full of chaos, backstabbing, and favoritism, that made Nia the real winner. Abby Lee Miller's worst choreography decision ever? Dance Moms had its share of disasters, but few moments were as cringy, chaotic, and controversially unforgettable as the infamous hip-hop group routine that crashed and burned in front of the judges and in front of millions of fans watching at home. Let's be honest, when you think hip-hop, the ALDC is probably not the first group that comes to mind. Abby Lee Miller built her legacy on precision, technique, and classic jazz or lyrical solos, not swagger, street style, or swagged-out choreography. So when Abby announced that the girls would be doing a full-on hip-hop number, even the girls looked scared. And they were right to be. It all started when Abby, in a rare attempt to prove that her team could do any style, decided to throw her elite competition girls into a hip-hop group dance. Not contemporary. Not musical theater. Not jazz funk with a hip-hop influence. Straight up hip-hop. And worse? She wasn't even bringing in a qualified choreographer for it. Instead of hiring a real street-style hip-hop coach, which even Kathy from Candy Apples would have done, Abby slapped together some moves she thought looked urban and told the girls to just sell it. Spoiler, they didn't. Abby's version of hip-hop included a jazz hands, a lot of squatting, a random hat flips, a weird faces, a Maddie doing lyrical moves in sneakers. The girls looked uncomfortable. You could see it in their body language. They were second-guessing every move, and honestly, who could blame them? This was not their style, and Abby knew it. But instead of adapting or hiring someone credible, Abby doubled down, barking at the girls for not having enough attitude, when she herself didn't even understand the genre. It didn't take long for the moms to start whispering or shouting in the viewing loft. Christi, of course, was the first to go full roast mode. This is not hip-hop. This is a disaster with a beat. Even Jill, usually Team Abby, looked worried. Holly, who always tried to stay diplomatic, started asking very fair questions about cultural sensitivity, proper training, and what message this performance was really sending. Let's be real, it's one thing to try a new style. It's another to butcher it so badly that it feels like a parody. And the girls? They were getting frustrated too. You know it's bad when Maddie, Abby's star, her golden girl, the one who can usually spin straw into gold, quietly muttered, "I don't feel cool. I feel stupid." Kendall was trying her best but kept forgetting the counts. Nia, who actually had some hip-hop experience from extracurricular classes, wasn't being featured at all. Brooke looked embarrassed. Chloe was clearly just trying to survive. The entire team was crumbling in rehearsal, and Abby's only response? You just don't want it bad enough. No, Abby. They just didn't want to look like fools on a national stage. Abby's costume vision? A baggy cargo pants. A neon crop tops. The fingerless gloves. A snapbacks, because of course. A chunky chain necklaces that look like they came from a Halloween bin. It was giving Walmart version of a 2000s Missy Elliott video, but without the rhythm, the authenticity, or the actual dancing ability. The girls tried to make it work, but even their walk to the stage looked more like a funeral march than a hype crew. The moment they hit the stage, everything unraveled. Fast. A timing? Off. A synchronization? Nowhere in sight. A energy? Confused at best. Chloe turned the wrong way. Kendall missed a move entirely. Maddie was trying so hard to channel hip-hop face but ended up looking constipated. And Brooke, poor Brooke, just stood there during an entire section looking lost. The worst part? The crowd was silent. No cheers. No excitement. Just second-hand embarrassment. And when the music cut, crickets. Not even Abby clapped. The judges were polite. Too polite. Which, as Dance Moms fans know, is code for they hated it. One judge tried to be nice, saying, "It's always great to see dancers step outside their comfort zone." Translation, you all had no business doing that dance. Another judge just said, "That was different." And the scores? Bottom of the rankings. Ouch. Backstage, Abby was livid, but not at her choreography, or her lack of training, or her complete failure to understand the genre. Nope. She blamed. The girls. You didn't sell it. The moms. You put this negativity into their heads. The judges. They don't understand real hip-hop. LOL. Abby even had the nerve to say, "If Beyoncé were watching, she'd love it." Ma'am. Beyoncé would have filed a cease and desist. After this performance, something shifted. The moms started seriously questioning Abby's creative decisions. Holly finally called out the fact that Nia should have been featured more, especially in a genre she was actually trained in. Christi said what we were all thinking. This was a vanity project. Abby wanted to prove she could choreograph hip-hop, and she failed. And the girls? They looked defeated. This wasn't just a loss. It was humiliation. They didn't fail a dance. They were set up to fail by someone who refused to ask for help or recognize her limits. Twitter was a bloodbath. Fans posted reaction GIFs, memes, and "what did I just watch?" tweets for days. YouTube comments under the performance video were savage, with fans calling it hip-hop's funeral. The worst ALDC dance ever aired. So bad it should be illegal. Even former Dance Moms cast members chimed in, with some subtly shading the routine in interviews and Q&As. It became one of the most replayed disasters in the show's history. Not because it was good, but because it was so spectacularly bad. Did Abby learn anything from this? Doubtful. She briefly acknowledged the flop, then pivoted back to her comfort zone. Lyrical solos from Maddie, jazzy duets, and dramatic group pieces. But the damage had been done. The hip-hop train wreck became a cautionary tale. Not just about poor choreography, but about arrogance, ignorance, and the refusal to grow. Years later, this routine still lives rent-free in fans' minds. It's a symbol of everything wrong with Abby's "I know best" attitude, and a reminder that even the fiercest dancers need a coach who actually knows what they're doing. The only thing that survived that train wreck? The memes. And let's be honest, that performance might have flopped harder than a fake Gucci bag, but in true Dance Moms fashion, it made great TV. Winning isn't everything, unless you're Abby Lee Miller. From the very beginning, Abby Lee Miller made one thing clear: dance is a blood sport, and Nationals is the ultimate battlefield. While most people think of Nationals as a season finale or a celebratory milestone, for Abby, it was a year-long obsession. A finish line she never stopped sprinting toward, even if she had to trample a few dreams and dancers to get there. Let's dive into the drama, delusions, and full-blown meltdowns that marked the start of Abby's Nationals fixation, a turning point that would permanently raise the stakes and ruin some lives at the ALDC. The first time Abby said the word Nationals, it sent a ripple of tension through the room. The moms tensed up. The girls looked at each other. You could almost hear the Jaws theme in the background. From that moment on, every competition, every rehearsal, every solo was no longer about trophies or improving technique. It was about earning a spot at nationals. And that meant the pressure was on. Abby started talking about nationals in January. The event wasn't until June. That's 6 months of build-up. 6 months of rehearsals framed not as opportunities, but as tests. And if you failed even once, you were off Abby's imaginary nationals lineup. Abby's new favorite threat became, if you don't win this week, you're not going to nationals. She'd dangle that dream like a carrot, then snatch it away the moment a kid showed weakness. Did Maddie miss a turn? Nationals spot at risk. Did Chloe come in second? Suddenly Abby's screaming, this is nationals season. We don't do second place. Even Nia, who worked twice as hard to get half the recognition, was told flat out, you're not ready for nationals. It wasn't about growth anymore. It wasn't even about love for dance. It was about who Abby thought could win and who she didn't want on stage at her crown jewel competition. As Abby ramped up her nationals obsession, the moms started unraveling. Every rehearsal was now a battle. Not just for solos, but for survival. A national solo was the holy grail, and every mom wanted it for her kid. Cue Christi's sarcasm, Jill's begging, Melissa's fake humility, and Holly's increasingly justified frustration. Jill especially went full chaos mode. She cried. She pleaded. She even threatened to switch studios again. All for Kendall to get that one golden solo at nationals. Abby, of course, milked it for all it was worth, stirring the pot, ranking the girls by who was ready and who couldn't handle it. It was less of a dance class and more of a psychological war zone. As nationals drew closer, the rehearsals got hostile. Abby stopped offering corrections and just yelled. The pyramid became more personal than ever, with photos ripped down mid-sentence. The girls looked exhausted, terrified, and increasingly unsure of themselves. Chloe, once confident and graceful, began second-guessing every step. Nia worked herself to the bone, only to be ignored. Even Maddie, yes Maddie, started cracking under the pressure. Nationals is everything, Abby would bark. If you don't care, don't show up. But the truth? They did care. They just weren't sure if Abby cared about them. One of Abby's favorite nationals mind games was refusing to lock in a lineup until the last possible moment. She kept the girls and moms in suspense. No one knew who would get a solo. No one knew who would even dance. I don't have to take all of you, she smirked. I'll take the best. So suddenly, teammates became rivals. The moms were whispering about solos. The girls were watching each other rehearse, terrified that one mistake meant being benched. Abby had created a Hunger Games, just with more rhinestones and tears. Meanwhile, Melissa kept insisting that Maddie was not being given special treatment, while Maddie mysteriously had her solo choreography weeks ahead of everyone else. Even the group numbers were being built around Maddie. Featured dancer didn't even cover it. She was the entire storyline. It was no wonder Christi finally snapped and said, just call it the Maddie Lee Dance Company and be done with it. Abby's obsession with nationals wasn't just about winning. It was about Maddie winning. And everyone else? Collateral damage. Perhaps the most devastating moment in Abby's nationals crusade was how it broke Chloe. Chloe had been winning, legitimately earning her spot, but Abby refused to acknowledge it. Instead, she pitted her against Maddie constantly, even implying that Chloe stole a solo opportunity. By the time nationals rolled around, Chloe was mentally and emotionally spent. In rehearsal, she hesitated for a single second, and Abby pounced. You're not ready. You've blown it. She replaced Chloe. Just like that. Christi lost it. Chloe cried in the hallway. And fans everywhere watched one of the most talented dancers on the team get pushed to the brink. All in the name of Abby's obsession. When Nationals Week finally arrived, the team was in shambles. Abby had changed the group number 3 times. The girls were burnt out, over-rehearsed, and underappreciated. The moms were practically brawling in the dressing room. And Abby? She was calm. Eerily calm. Because for her, Nationals wasn't about the kids. It was about her reputation. Her brand. Her legacy. Winning Nationals was her proof. Her validation. and she was willing to destroy her own team to get it. In the end, the ALDC did place at nationals. Maddie won. The group placed well. Abby smiled. But at what cost? Chloe's spirit was broken. Nia's hard work was overlooked. Paige and Brooke were barely present. And the moms were closer to mutiny than ever before. Abby had won the trophy, but she'd lost the room. And that nationals obsession? It didn't end there. It only got worse in the seasons to come. Abby's nationals obsession became a defining arc for the entire series. From solo showdowns to shocking last-minute switches, it set the stage for some of the most explosive episodes in Dance Moms history. But it also highlighted one of the show's darkest truths. Abby didn't care who she crushed, as long as she won. And every dancer knew. Nationals might be the top of the pyramid, but getting there meant clawing your way through Abby's chaos.